Hello and welcome. I'm Joe Salemi with DynaSCAPE Software, and today is the next installment of the Manage360 Masterclass, where we're going to try and help you get the most out of your landscape business operating system with Manage360. Today, we're in webinar 10. In our series, we're covering general conditions, tips, and tricks. So general conditions really are typically the helpful day-to-day support items like load and unload time, or miscellaneous things like design fees or permits, having a porta potty on site. So the things that are typical of every single job that you need to include on your estimate, but don't necessarily always have to show up. So this session will help you understand and how to utilize general conditions in Manage360 to help you save time on every single estimate. If you're doing cost-based estimating, how do you really recoup for all the costs and all the extras of a job, like permits, the bins, the travel times, the site access, the load and unload, site cleanup, and all those other ancillary costs that are directly related to the job? Well, with Manage360, you can absolutely capture those hidden costs under the category of general conditions, and to make sure that you don't lose any money on these essential but often overlooked items, whether you choose to show them on your proposal or not. Today, we're lucky enough to have Jordan Weir with us. He is one of our fantastic implementation and training specialists. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us. I think it's the right time in today's webinar to dive in and have you take us through some tips and tricks with how they relate to general conditions.
All right, thanks, Joe. Yeah, hey, everybody. So I'm going to switch over to my screen now. And so, yeah, you can see what I'm doing right here. So general conditions. I'm just going to start off by quickly reiterating what Joe said. The general conditions are typically going to be items that you are going to need as part of a job. So just those general items, but not necessarily the main components of the job itself. They're usually entered to reflect costs associated with things like job site management, and that can be things like trucks, trailers, your permits, portable toilet rental, so actual things, but they can also be supervisor or admin time, cleanup labor, yard time, travel, load and unload, the day-to-day things that you need to do pretty much any job. And so, of course, every job is going to be different. So the way that they're set up in Manage360 is to allow you to set kind of a base list of your normal general conditions and then configure them as you go from job to job. So first off, let's talk about how to set them up. To set up a general condition or to list an item as a general condition, you're going to want to go into your cost book and find the item that should be marked as a general condition. So you may want to create some ahead of time or pick an existing one. But for this example, let's use cleanup labor. And this is a pretty typical one. I would say most people use cleanup as a general condition. But it doesn't have to be labor. Again, equipment, materials, plants can all be marked as general conditions. Typically going to be your equipment, your labor. And also miscellaneous items are perfect for things like a design fee, again, portable toilet rental. Those will usually go in as a miscellaneous item. So here we have our cleanup labor. And in order to indicate that this labor type is a general condition, we just go down to the bottom here and hit the checkbox. Is general condition for construction? And if you have maintenance, there's also the option is general condition for maintenance. Now, you can see that there's a drop-down list right here. And so while this one is currently listed as 0.25 hours per day, I can also change that to per estimate. So this is one of the main things, the difference between per day and per estimate. Per day is going to actually use a calculation to figure out how many days Manage anticipates your job to take. So then based upon that, if it takes 3 days, it's going to add in 3/4 of an hour in this case. assuming there's only one person. I'll get more into that calculation shortly. There's also per estimate, and per estimate is just no calculation as to how many days. It's just a flat rate. You say 0.25 per estimate, and then that's all there is for the entire estimate. So for this one, we want it to be per day. We want it to be 15 minutes per day. Maintenance, on the other hand, it doesn't differentiate between days or the entire estimate, because maintenance is broken down into visits. So with maintenance, you can say we need something like a half hour of cleanup labor per visit, and then that will go on to your services. So when you have a service, you're going to go perform a mow and trim. It'll bring along half an hour for the entire visit of cleanup labor. So now that we have learned how to set them up, let's actually go and see what's going to happen on an estimate, and then the few other places I'll show you as well that have general conditions. So right here, I have this paver install estimate open. And as you can see, there's a front garden bed work area and then a paver patio work area. And both of these work areas have within them general conditions. And they're their own subsection of the estimate. You can think of a work area as being broken down into subsections. So these three here are kits. This is all the paver install related kits. There is a subsection for the cost book items. So those are just any items not added to a kit and also not part of general conditions. And then this is the general conditions subsection. So you can break down your work areas to reflect different types of items like that. So yeah, you can see that they're both the same types of general conditions in each work area, but the quantities are different. I'm going to explain how it distributes them, but that is something that happens automatically. Your general conditions get distributed throughout your estimate. So when you build an estimate, at first it's not going to have any general conditions on it. You're just going to start adding your items, and then once you save, it's going to ask you, would you like to recalculate your general conditions? So I'm going to actually make a small change here to trigger that happening. I'm going to save my estimate, and it says, your estimate has changed. Do you want to recalculate your general conditions? And I can either say yes or no. So yes is going to actually go and attempt to calculate them based upon the amount of labor on my job for those per day estimates. And then also think about if it needs to redistribute amongst all the work areas. For instance, if I got rid of that front yard garden bed work area, it would attempt to push everything onto my paver patio work area. So you kind of want to decide, do my general conditions need to be recalculated, or do I have them set up the way I want? So something to think about if you're using them before you send off the job for approval with the customer. To actually see your general conditions and adjust how they behave, you're going to go here onto the Edit General Conditions button. And that opens up a little pop-up. And so what we're presented with here is details of the estimate that concern general conditions, and then the general conditions items themselves. So we can see cleanup labor, design fee, load and unload time, portable toilet rental, travel time, and then a fee for temporary street occupancy. So looking at these ones right here, we can see that some of them are listed as per day. This one just has the total column filled out. That would be a per estimate general condition. And this one doesn't have either. And that one is because it's not using unit pricing. We're just going to set up a flat rate for that design fee. So we can take a look at that option later as well, teach you how to set them all out. That design, cleanup labor we looked at earlier, 15 minutes per day. It's actually 15 minutes per person per day. So let's look at how it figures out how much it needs to bring along. So it's considering here your crew size. That number is a default, which comes from your division settings. So if you want to go to settings, divisions, you can open up your division and actually change that number. It will say crew size roughly in the middle of the page. And you can set your default crew size and then adjust it from estimate to estimate as you need to. So 3 people working a 10-hour day, it means that they can do 30 hours of production labor per day, 3 times 10. However, we have 1 hour of general conditions stuff per day, and that is 15 minutes each of cleanup and travel, and then ½ hour of load and unload. So that adds up to an hour. That means each person each day is doing 9 hours of production stuff and then 1 hour of general condition stuff. So with that being considered, they can do 9 times 3, 27 hours of production work per day against this pool here of total production hours on the estimate. So 27 hours going into 90.1 hours is going to be roughly 3.4. I think it actually works out to be 3.3 repeating, but it rounds up to 3.4. So that is how it figures out how many days it's going to take based upon how many people are there and what they're able to do per day. So those 3.4 days is going to say 3.4 days times 15 minutes per day times 3 people to give you 2.55 hours total on the whole estimate. And so it repeats that for all of our per day calculated general conditions. The other ones are a lot simpler. The portable toilet rental, I just say, well, they're for, I guess 3.4 days, but if we're going to be there longer, I'll just put in 3.5 days. I just set the total amount right here. So if it's things that don't really require you to have, to use that per day calculation and you want to set the total manually, you just do that right here and fill in as much as you need. And you can see some of these have a default of 0. That's actually a little trick people will use. Set it up so the quantity is 0 for the purpose of it being on this list in case you need it. I don't need a temporary street occupancy fee for this job, I just leave it at 0. But if I do need it, I just say, well, I need 1 of those, right? 1 per day. And then it will 1 times 3 per day in this case. And that's how they work. This one right here, design fee. If I wanted to charge a design fee, I can say it's going to cost $500 and I'm going to charge $750. This one I set up to not use unit pricing, so that's why it's there's no total per day. I just set the full amount. And for that, I'll actually show it to you quickly, just so you can see that specific example. So this one is not using unit pricing. That is the main thing here. It's default 0 per estimate, but since I'm not using units, I can't really multiply it by any kind of unit. So I just say it's not using unit pricing. If I do fill in a price, it's going to be on my estimate. So I'll just cancel out of this. Before I do though, you can use this add general conditions button to add things to this list just as a one-off. So for just this particular estimate, I want to have something on my list of general conditions to take advantage of this per day calculation or just to have it included in that general conditions subsection. I can add things as a one-off. I would say it's generally best to set things up in the cost book so they're always on your list of general conditions. But if you want to use something for one time, you can add it in like that. I can hit update to apply my changes, or I can just hit cancel to go back and leave things the way they were. So we can use general conditions on a construction estimate. There's another place we can use them, and that would be on a change order. So let me win this estimate, and that way it will become a job. And then once I'm on the job, I can go ahead and make a change order. So I'm going to go to contracts, new change order, and yeah, just the change order masterclass would be the one to go to for all that information. And so when I'm getting started on a change order, I just add items to it. So I'm just want to get a few things on here so I can start using general conditions. Just big carpentry job. Oops. So my general conditions, if I would like to apply them to a change order, I must hit edit general conditions, and then I can browse through my list here. So behaves the same as it did before. It's not considering the original contract. It's just considering whatever you have on the change order. So if I want to do that, update, expand, we can see that it brought in a small amount of cleanup, load, unload, travel time to supplement my carpentry labor right there. So same deal on change orders as it is in construction estimate. Now the third place it can be used would be in maintenance. So when you're setting up general conditions for maintenance, you're probably going to first set them up on the service. So here we have a mow and trim service that contains a mow, trim, blow kit within it. And then it also has general conditions, cleanup labor. So if I want to use my cleanup labor and have it brought in as a general condition, when I build my service, and that's of course from within cost book services, I'm going to hit edit general conditions, and then it's going to pull up all of my stuff that are maintenance per visit general conditions. And so per visit, it's not thinking about days because a visit is going to take less than a day, or at most one full day, unless you partially complete it. I'm just filling out how much I need to accomplish this whole mow and trim. So if we need a half hour of cleanup, I enter half an hour, and then it brings in half an hour. So I can set that up when I'm building my estimate, or sorry, when I'm building my service. And then the same deal on a maintenance estimate. It has the exact same layout where there's the service where you can add items and edit general conditions, and then just apply them to that service on the estimate instead of on the service itself from the cost book. Those would be the three places that you can use them. Actually, I'm not sure what that noise is. There we go. I don't know if anybody else can hear that. There we go. Seems to have gone away. One final thing that I would like to show you, and I forgot to mention this earlier, would be how they distribute. So you can see that on our original estimate, we've got a small amount of stuff in our front yard garden bed in terms of general conditions, but within the paver patio work area, I've got a lot more general conditions. They're more than double in my paver patio work area. So the way that it distributes, per day general conditions distribute based on the amount of labor in each work area. So because paver patio has more labor than front yard garden install, paver patio gets the majority of the general conditions that are per day. Per estimate general conditions, they distribute based on the work area price. So the higher priced work area gets most of the general conditions, and then the lower price would get, less. So that is pretty much everything for general conditions. I mean, they're pretty basic and they're pretty handy, and you can really think of them as a checklist. When you're going through that list of general conditions, you think about, what do I need this time? So I'm going to have the quantity listed there. And what do I not need? So I can just ignore those and leave them at a zero quantity, and then distribute them appropriately. So I hope that was helpful. I'll pass this back on to Joe, if he's still with us.
Thanks, Jordan. That was fantastic. Really appreciate you taking us through everything that we really need to know about general conditions inside of Manage360. If anyone has any questions, send us an email or give us a call. You can get us at support@dynascape.com or 1-800-710-1900, and extension 1 will get you right to our support team. This session has been recorded, and you can go ahead and take a look at this link right here. You will get an email with this link as well. So definitely go ahead and check out all of the recordings. And next week, we'll do webinar 11, all about scheduling. So we'll talk to you next week.